This is Tommy's Outdoors 24, and yours and my guest today is my good buddy Paul Dowling. Paul is an experienced hunter, and I'm not gonna lie, he's helping me a lot and answering all my newbie questions about hunting. So I was very happy to have him on the podcast. Actually, it was a good day. We met in the morning before the sunrise, and we went for a little hunt on a farm. Actually, it was more like a scout than a hunt. And after that, we attended a Rut Walk in Killarney National Park, organized by Wild Deer Association of Ireland. Paul was one of the co-organizers of that event. And during the event, we learned a ton, and we heard a lot about deer biology, and in general, how the things are with deer in Killarney. We're gonna talk in length about that in the podcast, and I feel like even people who are not interested in hunting deer, but are interested in deer in general, really should listen to that. That's something that I mentioned on the podcast, that hunters who were there, they most of them know these things, but I feel like especially non-hunters should hear from a park rangers about how the situation looks like with the deer, and learn about deer if they like deer. So anyway, after that event, we came back to Paul's place and we sat down and recorded a podcast. So also it's fair to mention that this is kind of like a special edition of the podcast, and the occasion is that within a week, on the 1st of November, deer season is expanded, and you can now shoot females. Actually, the license says females and antlerless deer, meaning that a male deer without antlers can be shot, called hummel, I believe. That's how you call male deer without antlers. And also deer that is less than a year, like calves. So this is important to know that this is a time, if you're after population control, if you're after controlling number of deer in the area, that's the time to do it, because you control number of deer by taking out females. Taking out males doesn't really do anything to controlling numbers of deer. That's females. You have to take females to control the numbers. So that's a time to do it if you're managing deer population in the area. But if you're managing deer population in the area, you obviously know that already. But for like other hunters, it's just more opportunities to take out an animal for the freezer. So anyway, I think that that's enough for this intro. And without any further ado, Paul Dowling. Hello, everybody. With me today, Paul Dowling. How are you, Paul?
I'm good, thanks, Tommy.
All right. So first of all, we met like a couple of years ago at the gun club, and I must say, your enthusiasm and willingness to share your knowledge and help me out as a beginner hunter is great. So I just want to take that opportunity and say thank you for.
No problem, Tommy. It's always great to meet someone who is enthusiastic also and has a hunger to learn, as I have had over the years, and I've always looked to someone to help me. So I like to share anything that I've learned, and hopefully it helps you along the way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And this is exactly what you said when we met for the first time, and it's exactly what you said. Like, I like to share, I like to help, and over past 2 years, I must say you've been my mentor, and you can take you take a call from me, and I say,
thanks very much.
Hey Paul, this and that happened, and then you kind of walk me through all this. So it's a great opportunity to say thank you.
No problem.
And so today has been a great day. The weather is a little bit like a typical Irish weather, like it's raining and it's cloud and mist and all that.
It's typical Irish weather for September, when one day you might have sunshine and the next day you have rain.
Yeah.
So we have all extremes here.
Yeah, well, that's a part of the game. So anyway, we started day pretty early. We went for a little bit like a hunt, maybe hunt, not hunt. We just looked at the farm.
We brought you to a farm nearby here that hopefully I'll get you permission on, and obviously we have to talk to the landowner first, where I've gotten permission, and I hope that you can get some successful hunts there as I have, but just a look to see what the lay of the land is.
Yeah.
And you can get familiar with the land, and I'll introduce you to the hunter, the landowner, and I have no doubt that he'll give you his blessing to hunt there when
Thank you.
you meet him.
Thank you for that, and for all of you who's listening, and kind of try to learn about hunting and all that. This is like from my experience. Like obviously, all the hunters who are listening to that, they already know that. But all of those who were trying to start, is like, it's such a great learning, even to go out with someone experienced, and even forget your firearm, just get the binos with you, go there, and just like even stuff that you told me today about the tracks and about how you kind of can figure out what is going on the land, even if you're not there. It's like a huge learning, and we've been out for like, I don't know, 45 minutes
maybe 45. Maybe 45 minutes.
Not even an hour. And like that's probably worth more than like 4 days of me going on my own.
Yeah.
Because you get that learning.
Well, you still need to go on your own, obviously, and figure out a lot of stuff for yourself, and you won't get there until you do that. But at the end of the day, there's no harm in going along with someone.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm an expert, I'm far from it. I still enjoy going out with other people who definitely know a lot more than I do. But you pick up so much in a short length of time, where I've seen this before, but now it makes sense.
Yes.
Where you see a track, and now you can make sense of that track, whether it's new or whether it's old. And it just helps. And of course, then you have to do your own research, and you have to get out yourself to make sense of it even more. But yeah, I appreciate someone like yourself coming along and learning. And I get the chance to share.
Yeah, it's awesome. And you also need to figure out the land that you're hunting on.
Exactly, you have to know where you're going to be hunting. Even, like we brought our rifles with us today, but to be fair, I didn't expect to get a shot, and I didn't want to get a shot. I wanted to show you where the boundaries were, where's safe to shoot, where's not safe to shoot, what the lay of the land was, where you can go, and where the deer are most likely to come out. And I showed you some tracks today, some paths that they use to travel from one side of the land to the other, and where you might set up and wait for a deer eventually in the future.
That's a great point, and like you gotta know the land, like the other farm. It was like last year I was actually get too close to deer. They were probably like 40 yards before I spotted them, and obviously it was too close. I couldn't do anything, and we kind of looked at each other, and
it's nice to know where deer are coming from, get a chance to see them. Ideally, a hunter wants to see a deer before he shoots him. You don't want to just say, there's a deer, bang. You want to observe a deer in its natural habitat. A trained hunter has to recognize a deer that may be injured for some reason, maybe acting abnormal for some reason, might be out at the wrong time of the day, and why that is.
Yes.
And part of being a trained hunter, courses that you can do, there's several of them at the moment, is to recognize a natural movement of a deer, how they move, what they do when they're grazing, and then apply that then to when you cull the deer. When you take that deer, you can take it a step further and examine the deer. You can look for any abnormalities in the deer, and if you get both, if you get an abnormal acting deer, a deer that's acting funny, out of sorts, and you only get that from time out in the field, and then you also find some abnormal lesions, or maybe some glands inflamed or something like that, you can add 2 and 2, and then you might take it a step further and maybe send a bit off for examination. But all those things add up to make a successful hunt, and knowing what you're taking out, knowing what you're shooting.
Yeah, so exactly. So you still hit another. You mentioned certifications. So this is one of the things that interests me. Like, so we have a HCAP certification in Ireland, which I think shortly will become mandatory.
Yeah, there are talks about HCAP or some form.
HCAP or equivalent.
HCAP or equivalent, And I've done the HCAP. I've done it many years ago, just for hunger for knowledge. I done it even though I didn't need to do it. I also did the Train Hunters course a few years ago. Again, I didn't have to do it. I wanted to do it, but I think every hunter should take it upon themselves to, gain as much knowledge as they can. Yeah, because it makes for you appreciate the hunt a lot more when you know what's going on.
Oh yeah, and like I absolutely love the instructions for HCAP. which I really have a fun studying and
Yeah.
reading and making notes, and like
Yeah.
even at some point it became to me obvious that as long as you take a that workshop before, you're probably good to go anyway. But nevertheless, like that it's called Stocker's Manual. I keep that thing, with all my gear, because it's sort of a book that at least I'm coming back and just saying, okay, I remember something, and you go back and you can read about deer.
You can refer.
Yeah, you can refer about deer biology.
It's always good. It's always good to find out as much as you can about anything you're doing, like be it sports. Any kind of football, hunting falls into those categories. The more you know, the more you'll enjoy it, and the better you'll get.
Yeah.
So, HCAP or equivalent. I'm not saying anyone is better than the other, but there definitely is a need for hunters in general to gain as much knowledge as they can.
Yes.
Before they think about pulling a trigger.
Yeah. Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And you mentioned trained hunter.
Yeah.
Please tell us about that because this is like when I'm asking, okay, what is the next step? Or what is the next certification? I'm usually getting like a kind of vague answer.
Yeah.
Oh, there's the DSC2 in UK.
DSC in the UK. Yeah.
Because DSC1, so there's DSC just to set up the stage. So HCAP is kind of equivalent of DSC1, or they're kind of the same thing in what is in the UK.
The way they'd put it is it's a minimum requirement. So the way the HCAP is formed is it's a minimum requirement for hunters to be able to, say for instance, hit a deer-sized target in the chest area. It's a minimum requirement, and to be fair, you should be able to do that. So they built this test up around a minimum requirement where you at least need to be able to shoot your gun, and you need to be able to shoot it to a reasonable amount of accuracy. So that's what the HCAP is, and also the DSC1, to my understanding, is also a minimum requirement.
Yeah, because there is a field test, and you're talking about the field test element of it.
So the trained hunters course that I did didn't take into account the shooting aspect.
Oh, okay.
However, it did delve a lot deeper into examination of carcasses, animals, different types of animals you're hunting, what seasons. It just delved a little bit deeper into, say, for instance, recognizing what to look for in an animal when it might be sick or may not be sick.
Yeah, so. Because that gives you, as if I remember correctly, that trained hunter certification gives you ability to put the deer carcass into retail chain without like a examination by the authority. You are the authority,
it puts the onus on the hunter then to be qualified, obviously, to make the decision to say that this animal, it was fit and healthy. And this goes back to my earlier comment about observing an animal before it's shot. You have to see what it's doing. Is it limping? Is it acting funny? Is it just lying down all the time? It's anything that's unusual. Then you take it a step further, examine the pluck, the lungs, the lymph nodes, the nodes everywhere, and what you do is you then form the opinion that this animal is fit for consumption. I've grolicked the animal clean. I don't have to now take this the entrails, the guts and so on to the abattoir where the animal is going to be processed to be examined, because I've done that process and I'm qualified to do it. You sit a test. You have to be qualified to do that. So then that just eliminates the fact that you don't have to carry now the head and the entrails as such to the abattoir, and it just makes life a bit easier. Any country in Europe has the ability to sell on animals, and here in Ireland it seems to be frowned upon. I just want to touch on this for a second. Every country needs a game dealer, and game dealers get a bad rap, and sometimes it's necessary, sometimes it's not. We have to cull and we have to maintain a healthy herd in Ireland. And for that to happen, every hunter is not going to eat every deer it shoots. It just wouldn't be impossible. So to maintain a healthy herd, and
I don't know if you have a big freezer.
Big freezer, you might have a big freezer. You have to have a reputable game dealer where you can sell on your deer, and it can go into the food chain safely. So this all lends to that, and it's a necessary evil. Like, it has to be there. Yeah. So it's part. I
never, to be honest, I never heard that the game dealers have like a bad rap about that. I obviously heard and talked in the podcast a lot about how hunting is struggling with acceptance and a kind of image, but I never heard that about the game dealers.
Yeah, see, over the years, there's been a lot of poaching. And poachers sell, they don't just shoot the deer for the fun of it. They sell their deer.
Yeah.
So I don't want to get too deep into that now. It's a whole other story. But basically, they sell their deer to game dealers, and game dealers sell it on. And to eliminate some of that, they brought in the trained hunters course. So at least people were trained, and there was some kind of traceability.
Right.
So you bring in an animal, my number of my trained hunters course is attached to that animal. There's traceability. I sell on that animal to the game dealer. The game dealer then can say, this deer was shot by Paul Dowling in Tipperary, in Kerry, in Dublin, wherever it was. He observed the animal. I signed a declaration to say I observed the animal. I examined the animal. The animal is safe to consume, and then it's sold on.
What is your responsibility then if the animal is so what risk are you taking?
Well, hopefully no risk, because you've done your job properly.
But obviously in case you or someone didn't do the job, so because obviously that traceability, someone gonna get knocking on your door, so it's like, are you Paul Dowling?
That's fair enough. That's a fair question. I don't actually know the answer to that. How far back the responsibility goes, but at the end of the day, it lends to any investigation that might happen if there was seen to be tainted meat somewhere.
Yeah.
If, for instance, I didn't do my job properly and there was some kind of infection in the deer, well, then at least they know where that infection came from.
Exactly. So that might be not even down to responsibility, but more of a
traceability.
Yeah, knowing that this is the area where the deer was taken, and probably then the herd is
very quickly something can be done about it. Then at that point, So it's traceability more than responsibility. We are still responsible. Everyone is responsible, but it's a traceability. I would imagine more so than that else.
Yeah, and look, I would imagine like even without the trained hunter, you can still consume the deer like for your own consumption and your close family. So that's probably where you want to do the even better job.
You want to do a better job,
that your closest family not gonna get sick.
You don't want to serve up something to your family that they're going to end up getting sick from. No. Yeah. So you certainly want to make sure that any animal you shoot is clean and is clear of disease before you consume it.
Yeah.
And the same responsibility then goes on when you sell on the animal.
So the biggest question now is like how to go about doing trained hunter
there's
course.
Several courses now. There's a new one after coming out in the last couple of years that I could give you more detail on if I had known that we'd gone down this rabbit hole.
Yeah.
There's a few places I can obviously give you information about that, but I don't have that information to hand right now. There's a train hunters course, there's a HCAP, there's another
but I'm mostly interested about like a next step of the HCAP, and I'm considering that the train hunter being a next step from the HCAP. So maybe we can put it in the show notes like or something like that.
We can add something in. I can tell you, I can make a phone call and have a couple of different contacts for you.
But that's you can do that course in Ireland. Is that
okay. Yeah, see, they don't do the DSC 1 and 2 down here. It's an English course.
Yeah, I know.
But it's definitely a good course to do for your own betterment.
So I mean, like everybody who has a HCAP, they probably will go straight to DSC2.
I'm not sure of that now. I couldn't answer that question.
Okay, because
they're a separate. They were based.
I know what you're saying.
The HCAP, to my understanding, was based around the DSC1 loosely. And then it was the laws and such were different, obviously, in Ireland to England, and what animals are in Ireland and England. So they tailored it to suit Ireland. So I don't know. I don't think that the DSC1 will, or the HCAP will replace the DSC1. If you wanted to do it, you'd have to do both.
So if you want to do DSC2, they probably going to tell you need to do DSC1.
You need to do both.
Because we don't recognize HCAP as an equivalent.
Exactly. And that's only my speculation. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I'm sure.
Yeah. It's a fair point. I never thought about that. But trained hunter. So in short, once you got HCAP, and for all of you who have a HCAP, next step, hungry for knowledge, hungry for moving things forward. Trained hunter is the next step. Trained
hunters course just helps you to recognize diseases and different types of animals, what the animals should be doing, what they should look like, and so on.
That's fantastic.
And on that, then there's also a lot of courses that say the Wild Deer Association do. We were at the Wild Deer Rut Walk today. They have a lot of open days where they'll do butchering courses, so on, hunting courses, all that kind of stuff. They're not official, but they're definitely something that you should go to just so as you understand. If I get a deer, what do I do with it? Well, you need to hang it in a fridge. This is how you break it down into handleable size portions. These kind of things. These are all done with the Wild Deer Association, and there's several of them held over the year.
Yeah.
alongside and shoot days that we have as well that would help you to encourage guys to improve their shooting skills.
Yeah.
So like they're more of a training day, fun day out with a competitive edge to it, but it's only for fun.
Yeah.
But it's really only for fun. Have a day out. We've had barbecues. The last shoot day we had 80 or more attendance.
Wow.
We had a barbecue at the end of the day, and we had the shooting competition.
Right.
And we also had the butchery display. So it was very, very successful. And obviously then today we had the Rut Walk.
Exactly. So this is how
educational.
This is we roll back a little bit because when down, like I said, this rabbit hole about certifications.
Yeah.
But that was very good. Train Hunter, next training course. That's a takeaway. So after we came back from that farm and we kind of walked around, the next kind of event of the day was the Rut Walk in Killarney National Park, and tell us about it, and it was an awesome event. I think
it's an annual event that Wild Deer Association have been running for the last few years. And really what it is, it's just to get people into the national park, get them to have a look at the deer that we have down here. They're the only native deer in Ireland. They're here thousands of years. They're like they came back with the Neolithic man. They're here that long. As soon as the ice died back thousands of years ago, we've had deer. They've been found, fossils have been found of them. So the red deer herd in Killarney is a very important herd to Ireland. It's part of our heritage. And it's just a day to get out with the rangers on the field who know all the deer nearly individually. And they told us some stories about a particular deer who was rather large, and they had a name for him, and they have his antlers that once he died
20 points.
He was so big, and they have his head once he died of natural injuries. He succumbed to injuries and had to be taken out, but they have his head in Killarney House. So they preserved his memory. All those things, the likes of the Rut Walk, you get to learn a lot about red deer. You can ask the rangers any question you want about anything got deer related or what the deer are doing. So we learned today that at the moment there's an overabundance of deer in the national park.
Yeah,
and they seem to be slipping back on their maintenance of the deer. They have to cull deer, obviously, but we get to enjoy that because we get to see like lots of deer running around, roaring and shouting and fighting with each other, and just getting to see the rut in all its glory. It was magnificent.
Yeah.
So I thought, what did you think of it for yourself?
Oh, look, it was like, first of all, bucket loads of knowledge.
Yeah.
And like you said, I would probably can, rattle off like 20 questions, for example, that 20-point deer.
Yeah.
I just wonder, is it because it's a red deer, and is it because it has the crowns on the tops of the antlers? Because like elk or wapiti, that's a bigger deer, right? Yeah. But it doesn't have these crowns on the top of the antlers. But I never heard about the elk, 20-point elk. It's like a 7x7, 8x8. It's a bit like 16 point, but 20 points.
Different.
So it's probably
species.
because of the crowns on the top.
Well, they just as the rangers spoke to us today. They said that in the park they have an abundance of food. So they're mainly grazers. They graze mostly on grass. 50% of their diet is grass. They'll browse also, but grass is what they like to live on the edge of woodland where they've got access to grass. Now in the national park they've got loads of grass. They've got any amount of it. So they're afforded the ability to grow these magnificent antlers. Yeah. And we got to see some of them today. Now, as the park rangers said that their average is 16. But they have seen 18 pointers, and this one particular magnificent animal
20
got
points.
as much as 20 points. So he must have been a beast to see. I don't think I've ever seen him, but I've seen a lot of the deer there over the years, and I've seen 18 pointers.
Yeah.
And like just the heaviness of the timber in the antler.
Yeah.
The size of these animals, they're you'd be in awe of them. Like, they're fantastic.
Yeah.
But to see them in all their glory, rutting and protecting their hinds,
and they hear
it in the woods. You hear the roar off in the woods. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So another thing, another comment, like you're asking what I was thinking about. I think that it's almost a pity that most of people who were there were hunters, and obviously it's not, because it's good, but I think it was so educational and so much information about why calling and kind of lethal control is important for deer, for well-being
of
a deer. it was very powerful coming
Yeah.
from rangers, from professionals, for people who really invested their life and their passion and their knowledge and their day-to-day work into that. And because like on this podcast, and listeners of the podcast know that there was on many occasions I had people who were like kind of declaring that they're against hunting or something like that, and my kind of mission of the podcast is kind of try to fix a little bit perception and acceptance of hunting. And I think that if we had more of people who are genuinely interested in deer and the well-being on the deer, and maybe even they're on their side like, hunters are bad guys, and hear that information, like that could like make them think, it's like, hang on a second, I want everything, because quite often it's an argument like, I like deer, I don't want any bad happen to deer, period, right? It's the end of a conversation. It's like, no, there's much more to that, because there's a limited area. That area has a carrying capacity. And if the carrying capacity going to be, exceeded
many times over,
then the bad things are happening.
Really what the rangers were saying today is that the national park is holding way more deer than it should do. It's damaging. The national park isn't just about deer. It's a national park in that it has a woodland, it has a whole ecology. There's lots of things going on. There are a lot more animals there that we don't see. The deer are obviously magnificent and they're lovely to see. But what the rangers were saying was, to control the deer is to enrich the environment. So it's not for the detriment of the deer, but the enrichment of the environment more so than anything else. So to keep the deer under control, as in you have a steady, healthy, safe number of deer in the environment of the national park, is the betterment of the national park. So you've got more species of birds, you've got more species of trees, you've got more species of ground animals, small animals, everything increases. And it's not for the sake of shooting the deer. Deer are naturally predated on in going back in the wild, where they're not actually in the wild now in the national park. They've got wolves, there's bears, there's coyotes everywhere. Deer are predated on. It's just natural. That's why they breed so fast.
Exactly.
They breed fast because that's their survival strategy, to survive. So when they're not being managed by wild animals, then that strategy goes against them, because they breed so fast, they'll outbreed themselves and they'll eat everything on the ground to a point where they'll actually die. They'll breed so fast, they'll eat everything, and they'll hit a bad winter. Half of the animals will die, and they'll die horribly. It's not a nice thing.
There's probably someone listening to that podcast right now and says, you need to introduce wolves, bro. You need wolves.
I can just see a wolf running through the streets of Killarney. That'd be lovely.
Exactly.
And to a point, I'd say, it'd be lovely, wouldn't it? But Ireland is a small country, and there's not many wild places left in the country, so we need to manage those wild places. And by having deer, we have a responsibility. We all want to see deer. We also have a responsibility to control those deer and to maintain a healthy herd. And that's really what the ranger was hitting on today, is to maintain and to know what's on the ground, take out the appropriate amount, and the appropriate amount of animals, the right types of animals to take out. Leave the healthy breeding males there, take the very young, take the very old, and a certain amount of females have to be culled every year to maintain a healthy herd.
That's really what controls population.
That's
females.
Right?
He said today, like only small percentage, like a 2% or 3% of stags that are actually breeding.
That's it, and
the rest of it like pushed away.
We saw it ourselves today. We saw what out of all the groups of deer, we saw 7 or 8 groups of deer with one master stag in it, maybe 2 or 3 big stags that wanted to get in there. And if we were to look out over the hill, the other side of the hill, there was a herd of male deer sitting there doing nothing. And they won't ever do nothing until they get, for a few years' time. So you don't need to have a huge population of male deer in a situation like that, is what he was trying to say. Now, that's obviously a controlled area. The national park is a controlled area, so that's why they managed to get to that, where they've got so many deer there, because they're not being shot at the moment. The maintenance is, the rangers aren't being given the resources to maintain the deer at the moment, and it's unfortunate. But that's what we see. That's what we see there. When we went there today, we saw a huge group of male deer that were way off to one side. We saw several groups of hinds that are being managed by one master stag and then a couple of
And that's
stags
the dude.
in around there that may have a chance of breeding if they manage to push the master stag off. That was it. So
Yeah.
a very small percentage of the deer breed.
Yeah, I had that conversation at least twice, if not 3 times, on the podcast about the introduction of wolves and the like. And as much as I'm pro natural world and I love it, and in the ideal world I would love to see wolves and bears and all that.
Yeah.
I think that the introduction of wolves in Ireland or in British Isles is a bad idea. It's
Well,
a bad idea
too
because it's too small. You will have these problem animals.
Yeah.
And then everything will go downhill from that point. So
Yeah.
I
Well, you take where they could put them in National Park, in the Yellowstone National Park in America.
yeah,
They
but the
brought in-
area.
they brought in wolves there, but there's such a vast area.
Yeah.
And that completely changed the environment. It actually changed the course of rivers. I've seen several documentaries about it.
Yeah.
It was the best thing ever done. Wolves changed the balance to give a healthier population of elk.
Yeah.
The wolves are obviously there. There's more flora and fauna in the national park now since wolves have got
They
there.
control the coyote population
Exactly,
as well.
yeah. So everything benefits by having a proper ecosystem. So you have predators, you have prey, and you have everything in between. And it all balances out. But Ireland is such a small country.
Well,
and
exactly.
the pockets of wild areas are so few and far between.
This is it.
Wolves just are kind of a non-runner here. So
exactly.
as much as we'd like to see them.
Yeah, it's not a good idea. So another interesting thing that was said that I I was wondering and I was inquiring about that, never got a clear answer. So we have in Ireland this problem with hybridization between native red deer and Sika.
Yeah.
And what's happening is like that hybridization, especially in the Wicklow Mountains, there's a lot of that going on. Where there's hybrids between red deer and Sika. That's not happening in Kerry. That's why we have it like a pure blood, for the want of a better word, red deer in Kerry. Yeah, they're protected. You cannot shoot them in Kerry. And it was very interesting what they said today, that because like if deer are not managed, if they're not called, they're kind of struggling for resources, getting less food, they're getting smaller, and once they're getting smaller, they more suited to hybridize. And because those deer are kind of healthy and big in Kerry, then body size difference doesn't allow them to hybridize. Which was like, I think, fantastic. Like, it's now when you think about it, it's so obvious, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Well, see, the Wicklow situation was different. It was that happened in captivity. Back up in when, now you're catching me. The names. It happened in captivity in Wicklow. Basically, the red deer and the Sika were brought together, and they were almost made to breed. And then a group of hybrids got away, and basically everything.
Nature took care of
took care of everything else, right? So basically, everything up in Wicklow is tainted to a certain point with hybridization. That hasn't happened down here because they were never forced to breed. They were never kept in captivity in close quarters. Now, if you put a red hind or a Sika hind into a pen and put in a red stag, he'll breed both of them. Yeah, if he can.
Yeah,
he just hormones will take over, and he'll do whatever he can to breed both of those in captivity. Now, in the wild, obviously, a Sika wants to stay with a Sika. A red wants to, even though they do mix, and you see them together. Yeah, they tend to stick to their own. And
will you see them together?
Oh yeah, sure. We as we walked through the park today, I saw a couple of groups of Sika in the woods.
Oh yeah, but the groups of Sika, but they're not actually together in one group.
You'll see them in one group.
Oh,
yeah,
right.
Generally you'll see in the national park. You could see hinds lying down as you walk through the national park. You'll see them laying down in the meadows. You could see 20 or 30 reds, and you might see 5 or 6 Sika hind in among them. Yeah. Not saying that they're breeding together, but they're there, and they're completely obvious that one is the other because it's size difference, obviously. Yeah. But they haven't bred, to the best of our knowledge, here in Killarney yet, and hopefully that won't ever happen. But it's all down to the people in charge making sure that they control and make sure, and hunters as well were responsible for taking care of our patch of the ground. Right. So yeah,
that's why we should be trained.
Why everyone should be trained. It goes back to why I didn't have to do a HCAP. I wasn't part of a lease. I didn't have to do it, but I wanted to do it. I didn't have to do it, trained hunters, but I wanted to do it. Everyone should take the responsibility upon themselves to get out there and find out as much as they can about what they're doing.
Yeah.
Not just get a gun,
Yeah.
walk out the door and point it at something and shoot.
Oh, I probably already said that on one episode of the podcast when I was doing HCAP exam. The guy next to me, he couldn't group 4-inch group, 100 yards prone.
Yeah.
And like that's not difficult.
That's worrying.
That's
worrying.
exactly.
Yeah.
And now you think that you might be on the same patch of land with a guy like that, where he's kind of heart goes up and he's like all fired up, and like, oh my God, right? what like never mind thinking about the backstop or anything like that. Is like, oh, that's actually good that that.
Well, unfortunately, doing the HCAP is one thing. It doesn't mean that you have to have the HCAP to get a license.
Mm-hmm.
You can still go and apply for your license once you have all the criteria met. Once you've got permission to shoot in certain areas with deer in them, once you've got a suitable firearm, once you jump through all the hoops, you can still go and get a firearm and go out and shoot. And that's the unfortunate situation.
That's a current situation.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm taking.
I liken it to the driver's license.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, a few years ago, I could get my provisional license. When I started driving, I got my provisional license. I could jump into a car and drive, and I did.
Yeah,
I got my now. Obviously, I'd gotten a few lessons off my dad at the time. I got my provisional license for a car, jumped into it, and drove to Kerry. I'm from Tipperary.
Yeah.
First day.
Yeah.
Right. Nowadays, you have to have a certain amount of miles done with a qualified instructor.
Yeah.
Before you can get into
that provision. That provision. Obviously, I'm from the country where that thing works quite differently.
Yeah.
I just couldn't get over about
it's
the
idea
that you driving your own car then to the exam. You fail the exam and you get in the car and drive back. It's like, what the heck?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Now, unfortunately, shooting in Ireland is at the point where it's like that. You can get a provisional license. In other words, you can just get your gun license. You have to jump through the hoops. You have to show that you're a member of a club. You have to show that you've got land to shoot on. You have to jump through all those hoops. You can go and pay for your gun. You can walk out the door with a gun.
Yeah.
You might be left to put the scope on yourself, or you may have asked the guy in the shop to do it for you. It may or may not be zeroed.
Yeah.
There's at no point...
And you might not about safe taking what shot is
at no
safe
point... Now, obviously, it hasn't happened yet, touch wood, but at no point has someone said, how does that work to you? Do you know where to point, what you should and shouldn't do? So, in my mind, and I'll be burnt at the stake for saying this, but there should be a test before someone gets...
I totally agree.
I think there should be.
I totally agree.
A lot of people, like in the Wild Deer Association, there's a lot of courses out there that people are doing to show people if they want to learn more about the firearms, if they want to learn more about deer, but there's nothing mandatory. Now, like I said, I'll get burnt at the stake for saying this, but I firmly believe that there should be a minimum requirement, not you can have a minimum requirement if you want to. So that's just what I feel. You should have to spend at least a couple of hours on a range learning how to put on a scope, address any problem that may arise, and can you shoot a group at 100 yards?
Yeah.
3 things.
Yeah.
Very simple things. There should be a minimum requirement. Once you've that done, fine. Jesus. Yeah. Have fun. Enjoy yourself.
Yes.
Get out in the wild.
I totally agree with that. Yeah. There should be like that. Listen, so do you think that hunting is difficult?
Yes.
Okay,
it can be. Yes.
That actually, I'm glad to hear that, because I find it difficult. Obviously I was and again, listeners of the podcast know that my background is in fishing. I was angling for many years, and I found hunting like a natural progression.
Yes,
kind of like a next thing, and obviously, don't get me wrong, angling can be difficult, especially if you have like this particular method of catching this particular fish, and like it can be difficult. But overall, for like a entry barrier or like a level, it's much lower. It's much easier to go in, catch the fish and I'm not even talking about the license and gun and all that. I'm talking about knowing the land and kind of being able to stalk into the animal and
being familiar with your prey. It goes back to learning.
Yes.
Being familiar with the normal rhythms and movements of a deer, for instance, or a rabbit,
yes,
or fox, how they operate. It's all fundamental. It's all the basics. You need to know all this stuff, and you can know it. You can read it from a book, but to apply that then into real life is different. You need to know about the wind, which way it blows, which way you should approach to get the best results. Some of these things you can read them in a book and they will not apply to you until you have done them. So you can walk into a field 10 times and go, can't understand why there's no deer here. There's loads of tracks. I've been here in the morning, I've been here at nighttime. Can't see any deer. Why is there no deer here? Tracks everywhere. And then you might read a book or you might talk to someone like you're talking to me, or vice versa. I talk to you, or so on. He says, which side are you coming from? Well, the wind is blowing that way all the time. Why don't you come in from the other side?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you come in at the right time. The wind is the right way. And all of a sudden hunting is not difficult anymore. It makes sense.
Yeah.
But you have to make sense of it. And the same applies to your fishing. I couldn't go out now and catch a particular type of fish if I wanted to, because I'd have to ask you, what's the best lure? What's the best rod? What's the best line and leader? What's the best, this, that, and the other. And the same applies.
Tide and all that.
Yeah, exactly. So the same applies to hunting. And it sounds silly, like don't walk into the wind, have the wind coming towards you. So on. Like,
but sometimes it's such a like a thin line. I would like to share that story. You've probably never heard that before. I was sitting on the mountain, like a hill, right? I was sitting on a hill and I was looking down, and I really didn't want to, wasn't counting on shooting anything, but like you said, kind of see where the deer are coming, right? And the wind was kind of blowing across, So it was like, almost imagine, like, obviously people can't see me, but it was like going from left to right.
Yes.
And I was kind of looking forward. And I see the deer, right? And I saw that deer. That deer was maybe 300, 400 yards.
Yeah.
He couldn't see me. I was sitting, not moving. Right? And I looked through the binoculars, and that son of a bitch just looked straight at me. It just looks straight at me. And the next thing he does, he just jumped like a circle and looked at me again. It was almost telling me, like, come and get some. It was almost like he said, come and get some. I was like, I know, buddy. You know well that I'm here. And the wind was kind of across. So,
well, you see, if in a situation like that where you're up in a mountain, right? I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with where you were at this time, but I can only guess and make assumptions on what I've done myself in the past. You could be sitting up on a mountain and the wind could be blowing, like you say, left to right, but it could also blow across the side of that mountain that you're sitting on and swirl down into the
100%.
land
That's
below.
100% what had to happen then.
And
there,
I'm not saying that happened, but that could have happened.
Oh, it was like, exactly because it was down, and like like even the gesture with your hand that they would explain. But I was so stunned that animal was just looking straight at me.
But on the flip side, as we both spoke about today, you've had an experience. You told me about it where an animal walked straight towards you.
Yes.
Perfect storm.
Yes, exactly.
Everything was in your favor. You sat still. The wind was blowing in your favor. Everything happened. That deer just didn't even know you were there. He walked straight towards you until you had to make a noise. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
These things happen.
It was strange because, like, what are you gonna do, right? My rifle is 0 at 100 yards, and this guy was like maybe 10. Less than that. So I finally made a noise to kind of like. And on that, can encounter with deer, can it be dangerous?
I've not known anyone to get injured by deer, but sometimes you can certainly see red deer in the rut. You wouldn't want to approach a red stag in the rut because they just have one interest, and that's to mate with their females. And if you come close, you're a threat. So I've seen videos of guys on YouTube in Richmond Park over in England where they've gotten chased by deer.
Wow.
Like that, I wouldn't chance it. I don't know. You'd want to be it goes against anybody's better nature to walk up to an animal that weighs upwards of 250 kilos with a set of antlers, essentially swords sticking out of their head that could reef you. You wouldn't want to do that. So they won't bother you if you won't bother them. Anytime I've been out hunting, I've actually gotten very, very close to deer, red deer and sika deer, where you're doing your best, you're walking with the wind in your favor, you're very quiet, you might tip along, you might all of a sudden step on a branch and 2 yards or 5 yards ahead of you, the bush jumps up.
Well, that happened.
And the bush turns into a deer and runs off. But that's what they'll do. They'll rather get away from you than face you because it's in their nature.
That's exactly what happened to me. Like you said, the sika hind just jump out of the bush. And I was like touching. Well, I actually touched the bush, and that kind of springs like and run away. It's like, whoa.
Sika can be very funny. If they see you from far away, they'll just mosey on. if you happen to get within a certain distance, I don't know what that distance is, could be 50 yards, they tend to sit really still. And if you get closer again, then they'll bolt, right? But I've gotten more often than I care to mention, walked right up on a bush where a deer just jumps out of and whistle alarm calls and takes off.
Yes.
Now, they must have seen me. So my theory is that they have a distance where they go, right, if I sit still, they won't do anything. But then that closes in then to a point where they're too close now, I better go.
I better go.
But you'll see a variation. Like there's nothing set in stone. When it comes to hunting, anything can happen.
Yeah.
I could tell you that you go out to that field out there now and there'll be a seek a stag there every day at 2:00. You go out to that deer and he's not there. Well, what happened? Goes back to what we talked about wind, about approaching properly and all that kind of stuff. So you don't know what's after happening in the field next to that. Yeah. Whether he got shot already, whether he came, whether a car happened to go across the road two miles up the road where he was walking by and he got hit by the car, whether he got spooked by walkers, someone with a dog. There's a million things can happen. Yeah. So there's never a certainty in hunting. You have to always take every day with.
And how predictable, how repeatable is the habit of the deer? So if you see the deer always coming out, through the kind of gap in this hedge and goes that way, how predictable is can you count on it that it's going to happen next day, or you just need to find out?
Several things going to happen, right? And it goes back to you don't know what's going to happen before you got there. You don't know if there's people out walking dogs, but in general, if a deer is not under pressure, they'll hang around the same area. Like Sika hinds have been seen in certain areas there. They'll stay within a couple of square miles of where they were born forever.
Wow.
From the day they were born to
so that's a home range, right? That's called home range. So they're very small.
The Sika stag, for instance, could have during the rut. Now, obviously, different times of the year, different things happen. So during the rut, a Sika stag, if he's not able to hold his own hinds on this patch of land, he'll get pushed off by the master stag and he'll move on until he finds hinds that he can breed with. So he can go 20 miles.
Wow.
So when it comes back down to then how habitual are they? Once the rut is over and all this crazy stuff ends, which is only like a month or two in the year, they will generally ease off and they'll go back to where they normally like to lay up. They'll find a patch of ground where they can they'll mooch around. They'll need grass. They'll need someplace to lie up.
Yes.
So once they find those areas, chances are they'll probably wander around that area, eating and feeding, and staying safe.
Yeah.
For most of the year, and then come the rut, then they'll start to act a bit crazy again.
Yeah. Yeah.
But nothing is set in stone. I don't care what anyone says. You cannot bet.
Yes.
What happens when you go hunting.
But you can I suppose what you said, and I can confirm that you can pick up on kind of rhythm of the nature.
Yeah, rhythm.
Because I remember like it was always there was a lit getting like towards the sunset, and it was like always first the hare goes out, and then you see fox go somewhere else, and then you go deer. So the next day you sitting there and you're waiting to see the hare first. There it is. The next will be fox, and then sure enough the next thing the fox shows up, and then the next things the deer shows up. So you kind of get a rhythm, and then so the next, like if you don't see the hare, for example, say something has changed.
Something happened. Yeah.
It might affect or might not affect the deer, but you kind of getting more familiar with the area.
Yeah, familiar. Yeah, you'll get the rhythms, you'll get the cycles, you'll get to know what they want to do. But it doesn't always happen that way.
Yeah.
Because of what I said about you don't know what happens in the field over to you. Who's been out there? Has another hunter been there? Has a dog run across the field? They'll obviously change their mind and they'll go the other way. So you just don't know. But it's all down to getting out in the field, getting a feel for the land, and getting a feel for what the animals are doing. And observation is the only way to do that. Yeah. And getting out onto the ground.
Let's wind back a little bit to the Rut Walk that we attended today, and to the point that this is a really educational event.
Yeah.
And do you feel like, because we obviously had a chat before we started recording, that on one hand, the point that I made, that I would like to see more non-hunters on that event to get an education and kind of understand that the lethal control or call is important for the well-being of a deer, and it's really needed. At the same point, you made it also valid point that is there a danger of this becoming like a pushing content and
an
kind
argument,
of an argument? And like, what's your take on that? Because obviously that educational aspect is very important, and how to get out this educational message without getting confrontational.
That's a hard one, because people kind of come with their preconceived ideas. They don't want to see anything happen to Bambi, right? At the end of the day, if you have an open mind and you go to something like the Rut Walk and you hear people talk like the Rangers spoke today about how the deer needed to be controlled, and you don't take that and go, oh my God, you're going to shoot Bambi. If you can understand, and I'm not saying people won't understand, but if they have an open mind and are willing to listen to people talking about what needs to be done as opposed to what they think would be lovely, that everyone could live in harmony and the deer could bounce around the streets and nothing ever bad would happen to them. But reality is that the deer need to have the right amount of food. They need to have the right amount of balance of everything for everything to work. So as a result, they need to be called. If they can go and listen to that, well then fine. I'd encourage anybody to come along.
Yes.
But you might have one extreme to the other. Like, I wouldn't go on to a group of vegans. I'm not saying vegans are bad people. They've made their life choices, and say, we'd like to invite you to the Wild Deer Association.
But I think that they not a shoot day, but a Rut Walk. I think that this is precisely the group that should go to the Rut Walk and kind of and understand. So they're not kind of living, and obviously there are people that are closed-minded. Yeah. But if out of this group there's like 1 out of 10, that's like I want well-being. My interest is the well-being of deer, and actually this is
we're not, like, I wouldn't be forcing that person to come and eat a steak with me, because they've made their decision. They want to be vegan, whatever, so on. But I'd encourage them to have an open mind as to what really does have to happen if we want to have deer in the world that we live in right now. Yeah, and how it is.
Do you want to have all that deer kind of starving and small and kind of like anything? Yeah. So listen, how people who are listening to that now, how they can get informed about Rut Walk next year, how they can.
Well, everything should be on the Wild Deer Association Facebook page, and the website is under new management at the moment. It's been brought up to date, so we'll have the new Wild Deer Association Facebook website page, that'll be up and running. I myself have do as much as I can, as in promote from my own Facebook page, like just sharing links and such of any events that I know of that are coming up. When we talk about, like, next week, what date are we? What date are we today? So we've got the 13th.
13th. Yeah.
So next week we have the Sour Rifles. Are good enough to come over to us on the 20th, and they're going to have a selection of their fine rifles for us to shoot in the Midlands range. So there's another event that the Wild Deer Association are bringing to Ireland for people to experience. It's a free thing. You can attend. You go up there, you get to experience Sour, which make a lovely rifle. They've their entry level. They've got their more expensive, and then they've got the very expensive versions, but they make everything in between.
Just about everything in the world. Entry level, medium, and then
so you get a chance to handle it and shoot out on the range in Midlands next week. So that's okay. Just keep an eye out for these things. Like, you'll see it on the Facebook pages. Some people aren't on Facebook. You can check them out on the web link, the website, and all that kind of stuff. And I, like I said, try to post up as many.
And my point is that anyone who is listening to that now, and might get interested, not necessarily. That's my whole point. Not necessarily hunter, not necessarily interested in hunting, but interested in a nature, interested in maintaining a healthy population of a deer. They should really hear what we heard today from the mouth of rangers and kind of think about it like, these are people who are doing that professionally, and I don't have to be a hunter. I don't have to go out there and shoot a deer. Yes. I don't have to eat meat or whatever, but if I'm, that's how it works. Essentially, that's how it works. We cannot pretend like a human hand is not at play. Yeah. It is.
We're responsible for the world now. The world that we've created. Yeah. We're responsible for the maintenance and
Yeah, for the good or bad.
Good or bad, we're
that's what it
responsible.
is.
It's humans are responsible for everything that we touch.
Yeah.
So we have to take responsibility. It may not be nice for some people, but
Yeah.
it has to be done.
You touch on the event that is going on next week on I'm not actually sure if that podcast gonna be up before that event gonna happen. Probably not. But I want to take that opportunity and touch on how big part of hunting kind of lifestyle and community is shooting, and mainly sports shooting. Is that kind of like a necessary means to do what hunters do, or is it like a big part of what hunters do, and they're all passionate about all types of the guns and so on and so on? Like,
well, you'll meet a guy that bought a gun and he's shooting all his life, and his dad shot, and that's what he does. He just loves it. He might know that he has a gun, a rifle, and he'll know the caliber 243, 308, whatever, and he'll have that gun, and he'll take that gun every time out he wants to go shooting, and that'll be a tool for him to go out and enjoy the countryside and hunt, and hopefully maybe
connect with the land
and get out and go for a shot. And he might take that gun, he'll clean it once a year, stick it back in his safe, and that's his gun. That's it. Then you'll meet the other extreme, which I think I'm probably part of. I love shooting. I love it. When I'm not hunting in the winter, I'm taking part in competitions all summer, and I do it because I like to make sure that I can keep my eye
I
in.
just want to mention it's very good that you do, because that's how we meet.
Yeah, we met at the range.
Yeah.
Doing exactly like I shoot the competitions at the range that I met you at.
Yeah.
And I do that so that when I go out hunting, I can be confident that I will take a good shot, or to the best of my ability shot. Because like we said before, nothing is written in stone. You can be the best shooter in the world and you'll still miss sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's a hunter's responsibility to make sure that he at least has a rifle zeroed and is confident to take a shot at 100 or 200 yards, whatever it is, and that he stays within the confines of his ability. So yeah, I shoot competitions all year, as many as I can, because I'm restricted with work. But and with the mindset that if I shoot these competitions, I'll know what my bullets are going to do at a certain distance, and I can go out and I can comfortably take a shot on an animal and make sure that I can make a clean kill.
Yeah,
and
you're proficient with your rifle. You know your tool.
Proficient, know your tool, and you'll only be good at something if you do it. So you have to get out and shoot. Simple as that.
Yeah.
And that's what I like to do. But like, you'll have everything in between. Like I said, you'll have that guy who shoots because his dad shoots. And he likes to go out and go for a walk with his dad or his friend, and he may shoot or he may not shoot. And he puts his gun into his safe every evening, cleans it every once a year, and that's the activity he has with his gun. And you'll have a lad that likes to go out every week, and he'll clean his gun every second week, and then you'll have you have all aspects of it.
The guy who cleans his gun, even he doesn't need to clean the gun.
Yeah,
but
sometimes
it's just fun,
yeah. I just like to shoot my gun and I like to clean it. Yeah, but you'll have everything in between. It's like anything. It's like any aspect, like sports, football, hurling.
Yeah.
You'll have all these guys. You'll have one extreme to the other. But I personally myself think that everyone should, and it goes back to what we said about training earlier. You can be trained, but you need to maintain the ability.
Yeah.
So they'll only do that by getting out, get onto the range, shoot in a safe place, check your rifle shoots the way it should do, maintain it, get out and hunt,
and have that basic knowledge.
Enjoy it, because you don't know how blessed you are to be able to get out, walk the hills, walk the mountains, get in touch with nature, and hopefully take a responsible shot on an animal and be a part of the food chain, as opposed to going to Tesco's.
Yeah.
And buying something wrapped in plastic.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful thing.
That's one of the argument, like with vegans, which you mentioned, is like the hunting is probably next best thing.
I think so. I actually think so. I actually think that next to veganism, as in the guys who are extremely anti anything got to do with animals being injured or harmed, I think hunting is the next best thing.
Yeah,
because you take an animal out like that. There is no herding, there's no injections, there's no prodding, there's no poking. It's not been farmed.
And that animal lived natural life, going about his business or her business whole life, rather than being caged or anything like that. And it's like you said, it's healthy, it's lean, nutrient dense protein. It's like it doesn't get any better. It doesn't get
any better than that. And you have your hand in it from the minute you shoot it till when you serve it up and you eat it, or you serve it to your kids, your family, a healthy meal. And it keeps you healthy because you had to first get off your ass, get up the mountain, or get out into a farm.
Like we mentioned, it's not easy.
No, it's not easy. You have to. It's all good because you're using your muscles to walk out into the field. You're getting fit. You're getting. You're out breathing fresh air. It's amazing. It's fantastic. Yeah. And then you get to shoot an animal. You get to take that animal home, and you get to feed your family with it.
Yeah. I'm loving because this to this point. Oh, you killed a defenseless animal. It's not defenseless. It evolved for the thousands and thousands of years. Its defense mechanisms exactly against the guys like you.
Sense of smell, hearing, just eyesight, everything. You have to be better than them at that. So it's a chess game to a point where you have to know your skills have to be honed to a point where you can comfortably go out and get in close enough to see and hunt that deer properly.
Yeah.
So it's not a given just because you have a gun that you're going to get an animal. Yeah. You can't say I can tell you now across that hill that we're looking at out in the Gap of Dunlow here now. It's beautiful. I can tell you for a fact there's probably 100 deer out in that patch of ground out there.
You won't even see.
I can guarantee you, unless you knew what you're doing, that you would not go out there and come back with an animal. It's just not that easy. You have to, first of all, know where to go. You have to know how to get there without disturbing the animals. You could get to within 50 yards of it and say, I'm going to shoot this one. And the minute you pick up your rifle, they'll just for no reason walk away. Yeah. Even if you did everything right. Yeah. So it's just, it's not a given. It's not a given that if you go out with a gun to shoot a deer that you're going to come back with one. Not a given, never. So it's the fairest, it's the best way, I think, to feed your family.
Absolutely. Yeah. Listen, I want to roll back a little bit just onto the shooting. So Wild Deer Association actually is actively promoting sport of shooting, for want of a better word,
as opposed to stalking.
Well, no. I mean, like that event that you mentioned, right?
Oh, sorry, the sour rifles.
Yeah, the sour rifles. So this is kind of like a, relying that message that you said, get out there and actually, don't only shoot when you're shooting at the animal. Go at the range, train, and kind of so that promote.
Well, the sour rifles thing is basically, obviously, it's a sour trying to promote their product over other Remingtons, Tikkas, whatever. So basically, the reason they got on board with the Wild Deer Association is because we're hunters. They sell hunting rifles. Okay. It's a tool. The reason I'd say to anyone to go along to it is because maybe they'll find a gun that they like there, and basically we'll get the advantage of having to go with these guns without having to buy one. Yeah. So Sour get the advantage then of getting a whole new set of potential customers. So it's good for everyone. Yeah.
We'll promote that event. Like I said, that podcast probably not gonna be up before that event, but we'll promote that, and I'll do my best to be on the event as well. And
you should do it. Like I said, it costs us nothing. We go there. Sour are bringing the rifles. They want people to come and see them. You get the chance to shoot them. You might never buy one, but you might say, that's something I'd like in the future.
At least I have it in my hands.
But at least you know.
At least I know.
At least you know. And like that, unless you go, you'll never know.
Yeah. I want to touch on one more thing. And can you speak a little bit about clothing for hunting? Because that's actually one of the things that contributes to difficulty of it. That you need to know. You need like the first time, it was like 3 years ago. First time I went for a hunt. The guy who was I was organizing that told me something that at the time was completely something I would never thought. He said, like, make sure you wear something that is not making noise. Make sure you don't have a noisy jacket. And in that moment it occurred to me that the jacket I was planning to take It's like it makes these, noises each time I move around. It's like, so this is this part, and there's a temperature, right? Because when you lying in the ditch and kind of try to ambush animal, you get cold.
Yes.
Right. Then your shoes, you get wet feet, and probably I heard somewhere there's like one single thing that ruins most of the hunts are wet feet and so on. So can you give a little bit of a comments and advice with relation to?
Well, what I'll say to you, and I don't advocate any particular brand. I think they're all very good. Okay, I have a pair of hunting trousers on me, and like you say, there's soft areas in between your legs where you're likely to rub as you walk, so they don't make noise. That to me is not that important, right? Because I find I've worn all sorts of clothes over the years, but oftentimes it's your own mental, it's what's in your head. If you've got a positive attitude, if you've got all that stuff squared away, you're going to think yourself, right, I'll get a deer, I'll get out, I'll enjoy the hunt. It may mean more to you than it does to the deer. At the end of the day, if you do everything right, it'll work out. It doesn't. But having said that, I do have clothing that is soft, that won't make noise, that is breathable, that has a couple of layers. Even in this pants here, there's 2 to 3 layers in it. Gore-Tex, breathable. It's all about comfort. If you're not comfortable, you're not going to enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what I will say to people is about their shoes. Probably the most important thing that I've learned over the years is get a good, comfortable pair of boots, because you're going to be walking in them. If your feet get cold, you're going to be miserable. I bought a pair of boots there a couple of years ago, and I have them this is probably the 5th year now.
Wow.
I'm going to say they're Mindel boots, but I'm not necessarily because they're Mendel boots, but similar are equally as good. They cost a couple of €100, but they're the cheapest boots I ever bought, because I've bought them 5 years ago and I haven't had to replace them. I've bought boots for €80, €100, €120, €150, everything. All the boots you think you might ever need. Wellingtons, all sorts of leather boots, all sorts of things. They have lasted no time and they get wet. The minute they split, if a Wellington is good for a while, it keeps you dry, it's fine. They're never as comfortable as a boot. They might split after a while. You're wet again. You're back to square one. I bought those for, I think they were €260, which it's not a huge amount of money, but it's still a lot of money for a pair of boots that you're not going to be wearing to the disco. You're wearing them out. And I've had them for 5 years. I wear them during the summer. I wear them on my motorbike. I wear them when I'm walking in the summer shooting rabbits. I wear them all winter up in the mountain. And I hate taking them off.
Yeah.
They're comfortable.
I can say that like each time we meet, Lisa, like I love those boots. Like I don't want to take them off.
my feet are bone dry. We were out in the rain all day.
Yes,
my feet are so comfortable.
Oh, we also were crossing streams.
Yeah, we were crossing streams this morning. First thing we did this morning, we walked into a wet field and crossed the stream. Yeah, comfortable. You spend whatever you can afford on a really good pair of boots, some comfortable clothing, and you're good. And then as time goes by, you can save up and buy maybe better comfortable clothing. But the most important thing is get a good pair of boots, spend as much as you can on a pair of boots. If I was to tell anybody anything, buy a good pair of boots, because it'll make life so much nicer for you. When you're walking through fields, when you're walking up the side of a hill, when you're walking through a bog,
you're walking through the uneven terrain, and they
support you. They keep you toasty, warm and dry. So important. And then obviously then the clothing layers. Yes, layers are very important. You have your trousers. Everyone is different. I'm quite warm blooded. I don't need too much to keep me warm. Plus, when you're walking up a mountain, you're going to sweat. A good light jacket, 2 or 3 layers. So you start off with a base layer, preferably something that will wick away any kind of sweat when you do sweat. You don't want to sweat too much. So what you do is, if you're walking up the side of the hill, you have a jacket that you can zip down and unzip. You don't want to have too much weight in your jacket, because it's only adding to the weight. Fair enough. Some people like to sit in a high seat. Yeah. By all means, get a big heavy jacket, sit in your high seat, your jumper on, your shirt on, your t-shirt on, all that kind of stuff. That's fine. If you're out hunting actively, you need to dress appropriately. So you need to have a light base layer, maybe a shirt, then your jacket. And if it gets really warm, you can take your jacket off. That's You have to dress appropriately to suit the season.
And
as
is
well.
it like would you confirm that the wearing cotton as a base layer is not a good idea? That it has to be, like you said, something that wicks away.
I don't know what my base layer is made of. I just know it's a
probably
bit.
not cotton.
I have a
Probably
merino. I have a merino wool
Yeah.
top on here now at the moment, and I just have a cotton deer hunter shirt on.
Yeah.
Over that. But
Yeah, but is it like your not your base layer? It's like a shirt.
Yeah, that base layer there. I'm not sure what it's made of, to be honest with you.
But again, the thing is something that wicks away.
It's designed, and I looked it up, like designed to wick away sweat.
Yeah.
That's what you want. It'll keep you cool when you need to be kept cool, and it'll also keep you dry because it'll take the sweat away from your skin. It'll soak it into your shirt probably.
Yeah.
But like that now, if you're active, you're going to sweat. So you need something that'll take the sweat away. Because when you stop, if you, for instance, decide to walk up the side of a mountain and you stop and you sit down, you're going to get cold very quick.
Yeah.
So when you're walking up the side of the mountain, you need to have your jacket open if you can.
Yes.
You need to let the heat get out.
And then you put it on.
When you sit down, you put your jacket on and you close it up.
It can be tricky.
Yeah, it definitely can. It depends on where you're hunting, though. If you're hunting farmland or maybe a little bit of forestry beside a few fields, and you get to walk in, sit down, wait for an animal to come and shoot it, don't worry too much about it. Your Wellington boots, your cheap boots will do you fine. If you want to walk up the side of a mountain and get out a bit more,
which is most fun.
Yeah, which is the best, I think. You're really going to enjoy that, but you're going to have proper footwear. You wouldn't see someone walking like the hill walkers. They have really good footwear. That's the most important thing. Really good footwear and layers.
Yes.
That's where you go.
That's what I found out even when I was for angling is obviously clothing is also kind of important, and so what I found out back then that all the clothing for made for sailors are very good because it was very waterproof. It was very well made and kind of robust and kind of
expensive.
Obviously, right? But
like anything,
it was. But then kind of transferring into hunting, I find out it's not gonna work because number one, it's not silent and secondly, it always have something like kind of like a reflective element on it all over the place. Like no, it's probably
it's designed for something similar but different.
Yeah, exactly.
So you still have the same. You need to be dry. You need to be waterproof. You need to be warm.
Yeah,
but you don't want plastic banging off of things as you walk through a forest or if you rub off a branch.
But you know what, you said something that kind of resonated with me because you said that quite often it's more on your mind how you dress. And I remember, I don't know if you remember that, but it was last year when again we met at the shooting range. And I was not planning to go hunting or anything. And he said, like, will you go with me? You know, we might shoot something and so on.
Yeah.
And we went up on the farm and I said, like, well, all that fancy clothing, right, that I have. And now I'm here with, like a pair of trousers and everything. Like, and you like look at me, it's like, no, well, that looks fancy enough. Fine. That's okay.
That's fine, yeah.
So that's
oftentimes it's like the fishing lures. They say fishing lures are designed to catch anglers.
Yes.
The same thing goes to buy obviously sensibly. Don't go bananas. If you can go bananas if you want, but like some of this stuff is designed to catch the hunter, as in it's a product that's been marketed to you. But at the end of the day, all you need is something that you're comfortable in, and it's warm and it's keeps it reasonably dry. If you're lying down in a pool of mud, you're going to get wet. I don't care what you're after buying.
Yes.
You can have a plastic suit. It just will your water will get into you somehow.
Well, if you would have a plastic suit, you will
produce
the water.
You'll produce the sweat, yeah. So just get something that you're comfortable with. It's all about comfort.
Yes.
You're comfortable, you're going to enjoy your day. Today, especially when it's raining, we spent the whole morning walk around in the rain. Yeah. We're still happy chappies. We're walking around, we're happy.
Yeah.
If you're in like a cotton jacket, fleece or whatever, you'd be wet to the skin. You would be very unhappy.
Exactly. So
dress appropriately.
Tell me, what's your take on camo? Because I noticed like in America, they're absolutely kind of feel like they're bonkers about the camo and they're
bananas
all
about it. Yeah,
totally. Well, like here in like a Europe, let's say, it's not only Ireland, UK, but also like a mainland Europe. It's like kind of like green. And it's okay. Is
green
it
or brown?
So is it case of of different animal that is adapted to different things, or is it just the specificity of the market? And like you said, that
it's
everybody being called like, oh, I need to wear a camo.
Yeah, it's all about marketing.
I would just love go to the United States and just wear like a green thing and just be as successful.
I'll tell you, I would quite happily, weather permitting, of course, walk out in a Nike tracksuit with whatever jacket you wanted on, and I still feel that I'd be as successful in those clothes as I would be in the clothes I'm wearing right now. And these are specifically designed hunting clothes that I'm wearing. I don't think they're
not camo. Just
they're
for people who can't see you, they're
brown.
They're just
color.
greeny brown.
They're greeny brown. They're appropriate clothing for a hunter. We'll call it that. It's all in your head.
Yeah.
There's one thing you have to do is stand still. The second thing you have to do is make sure the wind is not blowing towards what you want to shoot. That's it. If you do those two things and wear whatever the hell you goddamn want, you'll be successful.
Yes.
Right? But at the same time, I wear these clothes because they're Gore-Tex lined. They're going to keep the weather somewhat at bay, not 100%. They're appropriate. And I like to wear hunting clothes when I'm hunting, you know? So as simple as that. Hunting clothes can be designed a little bit towards catching the hunter.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's any need for any kind of camo patterns. There's nothing wrong with them. They're probably designed.
Maybe when you're hunting something like sheep, which has a very good eyesight.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
If you move, they see movement.
Yeah.
What you're wearing is secondary to that. If you're bobbing your head along, they're going to see that head bobbing along. It doesn't matter what you're wearing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So camo. I personally don't particularly like camo patterns.
It becomes like almost like a city thing, like a, kind of disco.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. It just I personally just think green and brown or whatever is fine. Yeah. I just think it's fine.
It's classical. It's kind of more.
Yeah, it's a bit classier. Maybe you can call it that. But then that's what's in my head. What's in your head might differ. So you might enjoy the fact that you're wearing camo and you think you look cool or whatever. Yeah. That is,
you're blending in.
You're blending in. That's your thing. That's fine. But whatever gets you through the day. At the end of the day, the most important thing is staying still, don't have the wind blowing towards.
That's a very good advice. Very good advice. Final question on clothing.
Yeah.
What do you think about the wearing hunter blaze or blaze orange?
Nothing wrong with it.
I know, but this is generally a safety precaution. And is that in a scenarios of hunting, like most people will be hunting in Ireland and UK, is that really required? Because I understand that in the areas with a high pressure, like in the United States, you have a public land, you have the season is fairly short, and you have a lot of people in there.
Yeah.
You don't know, so it's good to be visible. Like in the scenarios like we have, do you feel like it's important?
I think there's nothing wrong with it. The hat that I was wearing today, if I flip over one side of it, it becomes the hunter's orange. It's been tested on deer. Apparently they don't see it. In fact, it's probably meant to be better than some of the clothes I'm wearing right now. Some of the blaze orange stuff. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it, and there's nothing wrong with being safe.
Yeah.
That's what I'd say.
So
if you feel like you need to wear blaze orange, crack on. I don't personally look for it myself, but I'd have no problem with buying a jacket with blaze orange flashes or shoulder pads or whatever, arm pads, whatever the hell you want to call them on it. But I wouldn't specifically go looking for one. I don't think I need it in the places I hunt. But there's nothing wrong with being safe. In fact, it's probably a good idea to have some sort of blaze, a hat or a shoulder, a collar or something like that's blaze orange that just sticks you out a little bit for our eyes. Obviously, it makes no difference to the quarry you'd be shooting, as we spoke about before, because it's all about being still.
Yeah.
No, it's a good idea. It's a good idea to be safe. I definitely wouldn't tell someone not to buy something that was blaze orange. It's a good idea to be safe.
Cool.
Yeah.
Paul, any final thoughts, any final comments
on today?
Well, in general, to our listeners.
Well, I hope this gets to a lot of people that understand that they need to get out, enjoy the sport, learn as much as they can about their guns, about what they're shooting at, before they go out, and hopefully have a successful hunting season and enjoy their sport, and try and pass that on to everyone they meet. Basically, if you meet that vegan in the coffee shop at your lunchtime and you're talking to your friend about deer, don't just shut up because they told you to. Try and explain it to them.
Educate.
educate. And educate yourself and educate people. Don't be an ass to them. Don't call them an asshole for not believing the same thing as you do. Just try and be nice and say, look, this is why I do it. If you don't like it, that's fine. See you later.
All right.
Move on.
Powerful message.
Yeah.
Paul, thank you very much. Appreciate you doing that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Cheers. Thanks very much.
Bye. And that was another episode of Tommy's Outdoors podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Outdoors Podcast. Like us on Facebook at Tommy's Outdoors. Follow us on Instagram at Tommy's Outdoors. And also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Yes, people, YouTube channel. Tommy's Outdoors YouTube channel. And obviously, subscribe on any and all podcasting platforms to never miss an episode again. And that's it. Until the next time, bye-bye.